Eric Clapton's daughter says that is her favorite Beatles member. Eric Patrick Clapton, CBE, is a guitarist, singer, and composer from England. He is widely considered one of rock's most successful and influential guitarists. Clapton was voted second among the 100 greatest guitarists of all time by Rolling Stone and fourth among the top 50 guitarists of all time by Gibson. In 2009, he was ranked fifth on Time magazine's list of the top 10 best electric guitar players. Let us now look at his involvement with the Beatles and how he was ready to become a member of the Beatles. Later, we'll discuss Eric's daughter, who shared her side of the story with the Beatles. So Ringo, Paul, John, and Eric, perhaps no other band in history, is as synonymous with its members' first names as the Beatles. However, George Harrison left the band at one point, and Eric Clapton was at the top of the list to replace him. The guitarist initially met the Fab Four when performing with the Yardbirds as a backup act for one of their headlining gigs in 1964. This resulted in a bond that spanned both the Beatles' professional and personal lives. Clapton not only worked with the band as a whole, but he also worked with each of the four members individually on their separate projects. Furthermore, he became great friends with Harrison, and they even shared an ex-wife, Pattie Boyd. Whatever transpired outside of music, and even during some of the heated moments inside the studio with Harrison, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and Ringo, they all had a mutual regard for Clapton, who became dangerously close to becoming a Beatle himself. Harrison employed Clapton to relieve tension within the Beatles. Harrison's the Beatles' lead guitarist bonded the most with Clapton, who left the Yardbirds in 1965 and later was a member of John Mayall and the Blues Breakers Cream, Blind Faith, and Derek and the Dominoes, and who continues to thrive as a solo artist and one of the greatest guitarists of our time with songs like Tears in Heaven and Wonderful Tonight. He was replaced in the Yardbirds by two emerging guitarists at the time, Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck. Things were strained among the Fab Four when the Beatles recorded the 1968 self-titled album, better known as the White Album. Indeed, Rolling Stone referred to it as the record that nearly tore them apart. They stayed together, thankfully, with Yellow Submarine and Abbey Road following in 1969 and Let It Be in 1970. Now let's get back to Eric's daughter, Ruth Clapton. So she made a recent appearance on Jackman Radio for an interview. During the course of the conversation, she revealed that George Harrison is her favorite member of the Beatles. Throughout the early stages of Eric Clapton's career as a musician, he was afforded the chance to cultivate a meaningful connection with George Harrison of the Beatles. And in 1964 was when Eric first met the Beatles when the Yardbirds were set to open for the Beatles at London's Hammersmith Odeon for their Christmas show. Clapton was a member of the Yardbirds at the time, and on September 3rd, 1968, George Harrison invited Eric to play guitar in their recording sessions for While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Clapton accepted Harrison's invitation and entered the studio alongside Harrison. The recording sessions included contributions from Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, and after the album was released, this guest recording session became Clapton's most famous of all time. And after another 3 months on January 10, 1969, Harrison officially parted ways with the Beatles. In the wake of his departure, John Lennon considered extending an invitation to Eric Clapton to replace George Harrison and the Beatles if Harrison did not return. Clapton later indicated that he would not contemplate joining them due to his affection for Harrison, despite the fact that Lennon did not approach Clapton with the invitation to become a member of the band. And in that interview with Jackman Radio, Ruth Clapton stated that she knew a lot about George Harrison due to her father's close relationship with him. And in addition, she mentioned that Harrison is her favorite member of the Beatles, and during the course of the discussion, she also shared her thoughts by stating, "I'd say I knew George Harrison the best because of him and my dad. They were quite close. As a result, I had multiple encounters with him and frequently spent time with him. I hadn't seen his son in a very long time, but we still keep in touch every once in a while. I had a fairly tight relationship with his son. But yes, he was definitely the one who came the closest. And even though it makes me feel sick to say it, I have to admit that I favor him the most." So, what are your thoughts on today's video? Which Beatle do you favor the most? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our incredible videos. Keep an eye out for the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.